Welcome to the Veiled Oracle. My name is Nzinga. On this channel, we talk about African traditional spirituality with a focus on the Shona traditions of ancestor reverence. Sit with me for a while as we look to the wisdom of the ancients for solutions to some of our modern day problems. Remember, we are spirit having a human experience. I appreciate you joining me today. This is my first ever posting on YouTube. As I indicated, my name is Nzinga. I'm coming to share with you some of the philosophies, beliefs, practices of spiritualism from Southern Africa. I'm going to be focusing mainly on the Shona people. The Shona refers to a large grouping of people that encompasses certain dialects and sub-tribes who all speak a common Bantu language called Shona, but with variations depending on the particular clan system that they belong to. So we have the Zezuru, we have the Karanga, we have the Manyika, and each have got their own lineages and totems, and the languages that they speak, although they can all hear each other, they sound distinctly different. What I'm going to be focusing on the Veiled Oracle, is what I can call a generic form of the Shona traditional spiritual practices and belief systems and philosophies, keeping in mind that they all come from the same root origin of the Bantu people. Because of the particular nature of my ancestry, sometimes I will also be referring to some of the practices among the Zulu people, and I might also be using some words or signifiers that are wholly rooted within the Zulu practice. For those of you who are not very aware of the social history of Southern Africa in particular, apart from the Khoisan of the Sahara, of the Kalahari in modern day Botswana, most people, I would say all people of Southern Africa, with the exception of the Khoisan, have got a common origins is called the Bantu. And within those Bantu origins, you have certain, I would say, sub-splinter groups. I've mentioned the Ngoni, and then you have, I've mentioned the Shona, and then you have the Nguni. And from the Nguni, you have offshoots like the Zulu, the Ndebele, and the Swati. So that's just briefly in terms of the location of what I'm going to be talking about. And the reason why I am coming onto YouTube with this particular channel is a question that has plagued me for the longest time, which is, do people know that Africa has a religion? I would ask you, the viewer, if I was to ask you right now, what is the religion of Africa? You would be stumped. Some of you would say, oh, the Africans are Christians. And some of you would say, no, actually the majority is Muslim. And then others might say, well, it's voodoo. We'll come to that later. Well, since I mentioned it, just to highlight that voodoo is based, or I'd say originates from West African slaves that were moved to Haiti, modern day Haiti, and they carried with them their spiritual traditions, and then they were forced into Christianity, and to keep themselves from persecution, They developed a hybrid form of Christianity where they embedded their own traditional beliefs and practices. So that's just as an aside. But coming back to my original question, the reason why you have a blank is precisely why I'm here. And I want us to talk about why that blank is there and what is behind the veil. In case you're wondering why I am appearing behind a veil, this is part of the Zulu tradition. I was initiated in both the Shona and the Zulu traditions because I'm a mix of those two traditions. And oracles and sangomas always have to have part of their face veiled. This signifies the veil between the land of the living and the land of spirit. This signifies that when a medium goes into a session of communicating with the world of spirit, she has located herself in the world of spirit, meaning she is now behind the veil, communing with the world of spirit and transmitting messages to the world of the living. This is the significance of the veil, and this is why I come to you as the veiled oracle. Now, who am I? I'm a spirit medium. Yes, I've said it. Sitting before you is a spirit medium. And when I say a spirit medium within the context of the Shona spiritual philosophy that I'm speaking about, it is very different from the notion of mediumship that is out there, that is commonly understood from the point of view of what I would call Western spiritualism. As a spirit medium, I channel particular spirits of my lineage with whom I've gone through an initiation process to be able to do so. And I channel only those spirit guides, those ancestors that I've gone through rituals of identification, acceptance, and channeling. My particular mediumship, I'm called a Shikiro. S-V-I-K-I-R-O. Shikiro. There are various levels of mediumship within the Shona tradition. I keep reminding you, the viewer, that I'm speaking of the Shona tradition because there are as many variations of mediumship on the African continent as there are ethnic groups. West Africa has got its own pantheon. East Africa has got its own pantheon. I don't know much about Central Africa, but Southern Africa also has its own pantheon, and I'm speaking within the context of Southern Africa. A Shikiro spirit medium channels what I would call a second generation spirit guides. A Shikiro channels a clan ancestor. There are other spirit mediums who we generally call the whole group Botedzi. You don't need to worry about pronouncing it right, but for those who speak the language, I'm sure they will understand and benefit from my use of some of these specific technical terms. Most spirit mediums will channel an ancestor guide from a particular family line. As we proceed with my postings, we will get to a point where we'll go into deeper detail of the various categories of spirit mediums and their various roles at family, community, and national level. Coming to me and explaining who I am, I'm a Shikiro spirit medium, meaning I channel a clan spirit, a spirit guide that lived generations before the family line that I am aware of. What happens is that guide is known in that clan, and every 100 or so years, they choose a medium that they connect with from birth. And when that medium attains the right age, they will make their presence known. And then it will be up to that individual to accept or not. But there's a lot of small print. We'll come to that later. We're still in the introductory phases. I will let it be known that I'm very, very excited to be here. And it took me, this is one of the most exciting, momentous events of my spiritual life, I would say, in the last decade. For several years, I've been prompted to set up this YouTube channel. And at first, it was something that I do not easily relate to. But the pressure kept mounting. And a few weeks ago, the message came loud and clear. The faint bells were now like the Big Ben right in front of my face. The time is now. And today, for the longest time, I was like the bungee jumper. I did bungee jumping 3 years ago. It's an experience that I would highly recommend, but I would not want to repeat. This is what happens when you're doing bungee jumping. This is a digression, but as you stay with me and we get to know each other, hopefully you will get comfortable with my style of delivery as I take these little side trips, sharing personal experience. So I was talking about my experience with bungee jumping. You see, what happens is, for you, when you go to the location, in my case, it was at the Victoria Falls, Mosowa Tunya. Please forgive me, ancestors. It's Mosowa Tunya, the water that thunders. So, you book, and for days in advance that you're going to be going bungee jumping. On the day, you go through the registration, and the faint anxiety that you had immediately goes into crescendo, and they know it. So when you go onto the bridge, in my case, I was just talking my head off from sheer nervousness, and all they do is go, yes, oh, is that so? But all the time they're strapping you up, they're checking the tension, they're doing all the mechanical things of getting you hooked up. And there I was, just chattering out my head away. And then they walk you to the platform. And even if you're mid-sentence, they just interject and they just go, bungee, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, bungee. And they push you off the ledge. And if you ever go bungee jumping, I strongly recommend video it if you want to see your frightened face and the things you say when you think you're dying. Oh my goodness. Okay, so back to what I was talking about. I'm basically sharing that today I've been thrown off the bungee platform. I was doing other things, dawdling as usual, planning myself into paralysis, and today I've been thrown. So what you have before you is a first-time YouTuber poster jumping off the bungee bridge. And I hope you will understand me and tolerate me and accommodate, because what I'm here to talk about is actually very serious, not in the sense of asking why African spirituality is not on the map of world religions, but at the same time understanding the dynamics that African philosophy has gone through over the last century, and the impact of what the impact that has had, not just on the psyche of the modern day African, but on the loss to the global community that African spiritual philosophy could have contributed. And I'm here with that specific mission of explaining African spiritual philosophy, values, beliefs, and practices, sharing them with you, the viewer, in the hope that as we go through the various topics that we're going to talk about, you're going to find something of value that could be incorporated into your worldview of spiritualism. So I had asked, what are the religions of Africa? And I know for a lot of you, there is a big yawning gap, precisely because they were erased from the consciousness, from the knowledge, from recognition. They were deliberately erased. And some of you would be saying, but why? Why would anybody do that? The argument that was used was that because Africans were ignorant, barbaric savages who were all very superstitious, and that they needed to be saved from their backwardness and superstitious beliefs by various means of isolating them from those belief systems and superimposing what was considered a superior value system and belief system. Now, various African, I would say African communities believed in a spiritual reality that was so intertwined with their day-to-day lived reality that it informed their way of thinking, it informed their social structuring, it informed pretty much every aspect of their lives. The things they respected, the things they held in contempt, the things they valued, the things they were afraid of. If you went to the root of it, it was intertwined with the acknowledgement of another reality, which is not a reality that we see with our physical sensory organs. There has been, for Southern Africa, and I'm making it very clear, for Southern Africa, the belief system was quite monotheistic, but with levels. And I'm going to repeat that. In Southern Africa, the religious or the spiritual philosophy was monotheistic, in that we believe in one supreme deity. And if I'm going to use the word, the Shona word, that deity is called Mwari, spelled M-W-A-R-I. If you break it linguistically, it means Mu, meaning there, Ari, who is, the one who is. And right there, you see a descriptive word of the supreme deity that the Shona people believed in and still do. Beneath the Mu'ari, beneath the one who is, are then the ancestors. What the anthropologists who came to Southern Africa did, they interpreted ancestor reverence to the worship of other gods and sought to superimpose a polytheistic lens of the realm of spiritual beings onto Shona spirituality. And then they proceeded to reinterpret that structure by concluding Africans pray to their ancestors. Africans, the God of Africans is their ancestors. That kind of mental gymnastics still plagues us to this day. We still need to be going out there and explaining ourselves to say, we were misinterpreted and we are here now to speak for ourselves. If you look at the modern Christianity, among the Shona-speaking people, they call the Christian God Mwari. Yes, if you were listening, you will now be going, excuse me, precisely. When the missionary came and we're trying to understand, establish a baseline, if I can put it that way, they sought to know whether the local communities, the natives, had any notion of God. And they asked, do you believe in a spiritual being that guides life? And they were told, yes, we do. Oh, so who do you call that being? We call him, we call that being Mwari. Ah, all right. Tell you what, we are bringing you a new and improved version of that being. That very Mwari that you say you pray to, yes, that's the same Mwari that we are bringing to you. But the thing is, the way you have been praying to your Mwari is all wrong. You have to pray our way, because now we've introduced to you Jesus. So you can no longer pray to your Mwari the way you used to. You now have to pray to your Mwari through this Jesus that we are bringing to you. Everything that you were doing before that is wrong. And those ancestors that you revere, those are demonic spirits. That's blasphemy. Those are demonic practices. And thereby was planted a seed, which to this day you still see playing out, that ancestor reverence is basically pandering to evil spirits and demonic spirits. Now, coming back to what I would call the capturing of the African God into Christianity. And here I would want to acknowledge that at least in the Muslim religion, they maintained the use of the word Allah. But the Christians preferred to usurp the local words for their sky gods and mean it to refer to the Christian God. And then in a very interesting sleight of hand, they then turn around and say, you, therefore, no longer have a God. You don't have a God. Now, I want to go back to the word Muari. The thing about the Shona language is that it does not have the prefix to denote male or female. Nouns do not denote sex. When we refer to an object, when we describe an object, we have to specify whether it's male or female. Let me put it this way. Let me use it as an example. Words like he, she do not exist in the Shona language. So when we say Mwari, we can only refer to our concept of God as they. Be it plural, singular ari or plural vari, it all means they. They as singular or they as plural. Our God is neither male nor female. The Mwari of the Shona people is sexless. And we say, Mwari, Mwea. God is ether. God is spirit. And therefore, in the truest form of the understanding of the Shona God is that it is a God that is ether. It is a God, that is why that God could speak through the wind, could speak through trees, could speak through rocks, because that God is ethereal and cannot be reduced to human form. Now then, when Christianity was brought to Africa, it came with a very distinct male God. And the notion of a male God found favor among the men in the African communities that they were coming to. And over time, it became the common way of referring to a God whose identity was now split in the African psyche. So what you have in the modern psyche, in the psyche of the modern African, is an internal tension between recognizing the Christian God who is male and Unfortunately, because of the imagery of Jesus and the original imagery of God is male and white and associated with the conqueror. And on the other hand, a God who is formless, sexless, and who commands as a different kind of reverence and respect for Ubuntu. And by Ubuntu is meant the qualities of being human. The only criteria that the Mwari God required was that you hold within yourself and demonstrate in your actions and interactions the values of Ubuntu, to be human. And to be human had nothing to do with maleness or femaleness. And later on, when we go into the specifics of how it translated into the spiritual value system, you will immediately notice a reverence for the mother, a reverence for the feminine, that then creates, like I said, this tension. And you see an attempt to reinterpret the Mwari God within the framework of the Christian God. Unfortunately, the two are distinctly different. As we go into these conversations in my next postings, I'm going to be delving into more detail as to how these two are distinctly different. But for this particular episode, I would like to end on the note of saying thank you for staying with me through my ramblings for my first posting on the Veiled Oracle. My name is Nzinga. If you like what I'm talking about, if you are interested in learning more about African traditional spirituality from the point of view of a Shikiro spirit medium, I ask you, you know what to do. Like, subscribe, and I look forward to interacting with you on my platform. I am eager to hear your feedback. I'm eager for your comments. And if you have particular questions that you would like answered as we proceed, you are more than welcome. So for today, thank you for joining me on the chat. I look forward to interacting with you once again. And I sign off and say, remember, you matter. If you think you don't, those who think they matter more than you will make decisions on the things that matter to you. Signing off.